I was the perfect wife for 8 years. I cooked, I cleaned, I supported his dreams while putting mine on hold. So why was I sitting alone at our anniversary dinner while my husband was with his secretary? The receipt fell from his jacket pocket. An expensive restaurant I had never been to. Then came the note in flowing handwriting. Last night was amazing. Can't wait for our trip. Vanessa. My heart shattered when Marcus finally confessed. He said I was suffocating him. That Vanessa understood his ambitions in ways I never could. He had been unhappy for years, apparently. All while I built our life together. That rainy night, driving home in tears, my car crashed off the bridge. But instead of darkness, I woke up 1 year earlier. The day I first met Vanessa. This time, I'm making him regret every choice. I spent the entire afternoon preparing Marcus's favorite meal. 8 years of marriage, and I still wanted to make each anniversary special. The table was set with our wedding china, candles flickering in the dim light of our dining room. I smoothed down my new dress and checked my makeup one more time in the hallway mirror. Tonight was doubly special. Not only was it our anniversary, but I had finally received the promotion I'd been working toward for 3 years. Senior Marketing Director. Marcus had always supported my career, at least in words. Tonight we would celebrate both our love and my success. The clock on the wall. Ticked past 7, then 8. No calls, no texts. I sent him a message that dinner was ready. The candles burned lower, and the perfectly cooked steak grew cold on its serving platter. By 9, I had blown out the candles and wrapped the food in foil. My phone buzzed. A text. From Marcus. Working late. Big client meeting ran over. Don't wait up. I stared at the message, disappointment settling in my chest like a stone. It wasn't the first time he'd missed an important date, but our anniversary. I began clearing the table, gathering his jacket from where he'd tossed it that morning over the kitchen chair. As I lifted it, something fell from the pocket. A receipt. My eyes scanned it automatically. Le Chateau, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. Dinner for 2, from last night. A bottle of champagne that cost more than our weekly grocery budget. I stood frozen, the receipt trembling in my hand. Something else had fallen too. A business card for Marcus's investment firm, but when I turned it over, there was a handwritten note. Last night was amazing. Can't wait for our trip. Vanessa. Vanessa. The name echoed in my mind. His new secretary. The young, polished woman he'd hired just 3 months ago. I'd met her once at a company function and noticed how her eyes followed my husband across the room. I spent the night alone in our bed, staring at the ceiling, the receipt and note on the nightstand beside me. When Marcus came home after midnight, I pretended to be asleep. The scent of unfamiliar perfume clung to him as he slipped under the covers. The next morning, I confronted him at breakfast. "Who's Vanessa?" I asked, sliding the note across the table. His face drained of color before his features hardened. "You went through my pockets?" "Answer the question, Marcus." "She's my secretary. It was a business dinner." "On the night before our anniversary? With champagne? And what trip are you planning?" He scoffed, standing up so abruptly his chair nearly toppled. "It was a one-time mistake, okay? It didn't mean anything. Just drop it, Eliza." But I couldn't. Drop it. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own marriage. I checked his emails when he left his laptop open, scrolled through his text messages while he showered, found hotel reservations for a weekend getaway to the coast, discovered a joint bank account I'd never known about, with nearly $20,000 in it. When I presented him with this evidence, his denial crumbled into cruel honesty. "Fine. You want the truth? I've been unhappy for years," he spat, pacing our living room. "This marriage is suffocating me. Vanessa understands my ambitions, my needs. She doesn't hold me back like you do." "Hold you back? I've supported every career move, every late night, every business trip." "That's just it. You're so focused on being the perfect wife that you're boring, Eliza. Where's your passion? Your drive? While you've been playing house, I've built an empire. His words cut deeper than any knife. I just got promoted to senior marketing director, I whispered. I was going to tell you at our anniversary dinner. He barely registered my words. Vanessa challenges me, makes me feel alive. When was the last time you did that? I felt something inside me break. 8 years of love and trust, shattered in an instant. So that's it? You're leaving me for your secretary? A cliché? Don't make this uglier than it needs to be, he said suddenly, composed, as if he'd rehearsed this moment. We can handle this like adults. I'll be generous in the divorce. Generous? I laughed, but it sounded hollow even to my own ears. How kind of you to throw me scraps after I helped build everything you have? I fled our house that night, unable to sleep, under the same roof. Rain pounded against my windshield as I drove aimlessly, tears blurring my vision. My phone kept buzzing with texts from Marcus, not apologies but practical questions about when I'd be moving my things out. The rage and grief clouded my judgment. I took a curve too fast on the rain-slicked road that ran alongside the river. My car hydroplaned, crashing through the guardrail. There was a moment of weightlessness as the vehicle plunged toward the dark water below. Impact. Cold water rushing in. The terrifying realization that the doors wouldn't open against the pressure. As water filled the car, my last conscious thoughts were a storm of regrets and burning anger. Not just at Marcus, but at myself for being so blind. For wasting years on someone who could discard me so easily. The darkness took me, and then, impossibly, light. I gasped awake, shooting upright in bed. Morning light streamed through familiar curtains. Our bedroom. Our house. Marcus snored softly beside me, his arm flung across my side of the bed. I stared at him in confusion, then at the clock on the nightstand. The date displayed made no sense. 1 year earlier. I remembered this day, the company holiday party where Marcus had first introduced me to Vanessa, his new secretary, the beginning of the end. How was this possible? My fingers touched my face, finding it dry. No tears, no bruises from the crash. Had it all been a nightmare? But the details were too vivid, too specific. The receipt from Le Chateau, the exact words of Vanessa's note, the joint bank account with $20,000. As Marcus stirred beside me, I felt something alien and powerful surge through me. If this was real, if I had somehow been given a second chance, I wouldn't waste it. This time, I wouldn't be the perfect, supportive wife who got discarded when something newer and more exciting came along. This time, I would be ready. And Marcus would regret every choice he was about to make. I spent that first day in a daze, moving through familiar routines while my mind raced. Was I having a mental breakdown? A premonition? Whatever this was, the knowledge I possessed felt too real to ignore. That evening, as Marcus and I dressed for his company holiday party, I watched him with new eyes, noting how he checked his phone more than necessary, how he barely looked at me as I spoke. "You'll finally meet my new secretary tonight," he said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. "Vanessa, just started last month, sharp as a tack." I forced a smile, though my stomach churned at the name. Looking forward to it? At the party, I spotted her immediately. Tall, confident, with a practiced laugh that drew attention. When Marcus introduced us, I studied her face carefully, searching for any sign of the woman who would destroy my marriage. All I saw was polite interest as she shook my hand. "Marcus talks about you all the time," she said smoothly. "Funny, he's barely mentioned you," I replied with equal smoothness, enjoying the brief flicker of surprise in her eyes. That night, after Marcus fell asleep, I started a journal, First, I mapped out a timeline based on what I remembered. 3 months from now, the late-night client meetings would begin. 5 months, the first weekend trip disguised as a conference. 7 months, the joint bank account. 8 months, the anniversary dinner I'd prepare while he dined with her. Next, I listed what I knew about Marcus's work. In my previous life, I'd paid little attention to the details of his investment business, trusting him completely. But there had been signs I'd ignored, comments about creative accounting, a nervous energy whenever certain clients called, the way he'd changed passwords and grown protective of his laptop. I needed to understand what he was hiding. Over the next few weeks, I began making subtle changes. I joined a gym, not just for fitness, but to establish a routine that gave me time away from home. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected, building a support network independent of our couple friends. I started saving money in an account he couldn't access, claiming it was for a surprise vacation. Most importantly, I began paying attention to his business, asking questions, showing interest in his clients, noticing which names made him tense up. "Since when do you care about investment strategies?" he asked one night, suspicious of my questions. "I've always cared about your work," I said. "I just realized I don't understand much of what you do. That should change, don't you think? We're partners after all." He seemed pleased by this, his ego stroked by the opportunity to explain his brilliance. And in those explanations, I began to see the cracks in his facade. Meanwhile, I watched the relationship between Marcus and Vanessa develop exactly as I knew it would. The lingering glances, the inside jokes, the way she'd find reasons to call or text after hours. This time, instead of being blindsided by pain, I observed their dance with cold clarity. I played my part perfectly, the trusting wife, never questioning his late nights, accepting his excuses without complaint, all while documenting every lie, every inconsistency. "You're different lately," Marcus said one evening, "more independent." I looked up from my laptop. "Is that a problem?" "No, not at all. It's just unexpected." He studied me with genuine curiosity. "What are you working on so intently?" "A presentation for work. I'm up for promotion to senior marketing director." "That's great," he said, but his attention had already drifted back to his phone, which had just buzzed with a text. "Vanessa, right on schedule." By the 3-month mark, Marcus began mentioning client dinners that ran late. Sometimes he'd come, home smelling of her perfume, a scent I now recognized instantly. Other times, he wouldn't come home at all, claiming he'd crashed at a colleague's place after drinks. I nodded and smiled and pretended to believe every word, while inside I built my case against him piece by piece. One afternoon, while Marcus was supposedly in meetings, I drove past Le Chateau and saw his car in the parking lot. I took a photo, noting the date and time, and added it to my growing file. Another day, I accidentally answered his phone when Vanessa called, enjoying her flustered response when she heard my voice instead of his. "Oh, Eliza, I was just calling about a client matter." "At 8 on a Saturday night? You work too hard." "Vanessa, Marcus is in the shower. Should I have him call you back?" "No, that won't be necessary. It can wait until Monday." I could picture her panic, her fear of discovery, not knowing that I already knew everything. The deeper I dug into Marcus's business affairs, the more disturbing the picture became. Client funds moved between accounts in patterns that made no sense. Investment returns that seemed too good to be true. And through it all, Vanessa's fingerprints, helping him cover his tracks with adjusted paperwork and creative bookkeeping. They weren't just having an affair. They were partners in something much worse. One night, I accidentally spilled wine on Marcus's laptop bag. As I rushed to clean it up, I managed to pocket a USB drive he always kept with him. Once he was asleep, I copied its contents: spreadsheets, account numbers, emails between him and Vanessa discussing how to adjust client statements. My hands shook as I returned the drive to his bag. This wasn't just unethical behavior. It was criminal. And in my previous life, I might have been implicated simply by being his wife. Not this time. As the months passed, I felt myself changing. The naive, trusting woman who had drowned in that river was gone. In her place was someone calculating, patient, and absolutely determined. At work, I threw myself into projects with new intensity. My boss noticed. "Whatever's lit a fire under you, keep it burning," she said after I presented a marketing campaign that brought in 3 major clients. "If you keep this up, that senior director position is yours." The same promotion I'd received before, but this time, I wouldn't let it be overshadowed by betrayal. This time, it would be a stepping stone to my independence. Marcus grew increasingly careless, confident in my obliviousness. He saved Vanessa's number under a male colleague's name. Used our credit card to buy her gifts, claiming they were business expenses. Even took calls from her while we were having dinner, stepping away with transparent excuses. And all the while, I watched. I documented. I prepared. 5 months in, just as my timeline predicted, he announced a weekend conference in the coastal town of Newport. "It's mandatory for all the senior partners," he explained, not quite meeting my eyes. I nodded sympathetically. That's too bad. Such a romantic spot to be stuck in boring meetings. His relief at my acceptance was almost comical. That weekend, while he and Vanessa enjoyed their getaway, I used his office key to access files he kept locked in his desk at home. More evidence of financial impropriety, more proof of how deep their conspiracy ran. As the 6-month mark approached, I knew a critical juncture was coming. In my previous life, this was when Marcus had begun to withdraw emotionally, preparing for his exit. Strategy. This time, I needed to be one step ahead. The opportunity came in the form of a job offer. A major competitor wanted me to lead their marketing department, with a substantial salary increase and one significant requirement: relocation to their headquarters in Chicago. In my previous life, I'd declined without a second thought, unwilling to disrupt Marcus's career. This time, I saw it for what it was: my path to freedom. The email from Meridian Marketing sat open on my laptop. "We're pleased to formally offer you the position of Executive Marketing Director at our Chicago headquarters." The salary was nearly double what I currently made. The benefits package included relocation assistance, comprehensive health care, and a retirement plan that made my current one look like pocket change. In my previous life, I had deleted this email without a second thought. Marcus's career came first. His dreams. His ambitions. I had been so concerned about being a supportive wife that I had forgotten to support myself. This time, I hit reply and accepted the offer. That evening, I waited until dinner to break the news. I had prepared his favorite meal, not out of devotion but strategy. Marcus was always more agreeable on a full stomach. "I received a job offer today," I said casually, refilling his wine glass. "Executive Marketing Director at Meridian." He glanced up, mild interest in his eyes. "That's great. Did you negotiate for a better salary here?" "Actually, I accepted it." His fork clattered against his plate. "You what?" "I accepted. It's an incredible opportunity. Double my current salary, better benefits, chance to lead an entire division." "But it's in Chicago," he said, his voice rising. "We live here." I took a sip of wine, maintaining my composure. "I know. That's why I wanted to discuss our options. I could commute back on weekends at first, or maybe you could consider transferring to their Chicago office. Your firm has a branch there, right?" Marcus stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. I could almost read his thoughts. This was not part of his plan. The obedient wife was supposed to stay put while he built his escape with Vanessa. To my surprise, after his initial shock, he didn't fight me on the decision. In fact, he seemed almost relieved. "Maybe this could work," he said thoughtfully. I'd stay here during the week. You'd be in Chicago. We'd see each other weekends. It might be good for us to have some independence. I nearly laughed at his transparency. Independence was exactly what he wanted, freedom to continue his affair without my constant presence. What he didn't realize was that this arrangement would also give me the freedom I needed to execute my plan. Within a month, I had opened separate bank accounts, transferred a portion of our joint savings into my name, and secured an apartment in Chicago. Marcus helped me pack, unusually attentive and generous. He even suggested I take most of our furniture, claiming he rarely used the living room anyway. You seem different about all this, I remarked as we packed kitchen items. I thought you'd be more upset about living apart. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. We've been together 8 years. A little distance might be healthy. Absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that. Or makes the affair more convenient, I thought, but didn't say. The night before my move, I deliberately left my laptop open on our bed while I showered. I had set up a folder labeled Chicago Apartment with photos of my new place. But buried within it was another folder marked Financial Records that contained some of the evidence I'd gathered about Marcus's dealings. It was a calculated risk, but I needed to see his reaction. When I emerged from the bathroom, the laptop was closed, and Marcus was sitting on the edge of the bed with a strange expression. Everything okay? I asked innocently. Fine, he said too quickly. Just thinking how quiet the house will be without you. But I noted how he avoided my gaze, how tension lined his shoulders. He had taken the bait. My first month in Chicago passed in a whirlwind of new responsibilities and challenges. I threw myself into the role, impressing my new colleagues with insights and strategies developed over years of experience. Weekends, as agreed, I flew back home, playing the part of the dutiful wife trying to make a long-distance marriage work. It was during these weekend visits that I gathered the most damning evidence yet. With Marcus growing increasingly careless, convinced I was absorbed in my new job and oblivious to his betrayal, he left more traces of his misdeeds. Bank statements showing large transfers to offshore accounts, client reports with falsified returns, emails with Vanessa discussing which clients were easiest to mislead. I documented everything meticulously, creating secure backups stored in multiple locations. This wasn't just about exposing an affair anymore. This was about bringing down a criminal enterprise. During a particularly revealing weekend, I discovered Marcus had begun embezzling from client accounts to fund his lavish lifestyle with Vanessa. Expensive restaurants, jewelry, weekend getaways, even a down payment on a beachfront property, all purchased with money stolen from people who trusted him with their life savings. More disturbing still was the discovery that Vanessa wasn't the naive accomplice I had initially assumed. Through careful investigation of her background, using resources available through my new company, I uncovered a pattern. She had worked at 3 investment firms in the past 5 years. Each time, she had been closely associated with a male executive. Each time, there had been whispers of financial irregularities that were quietly handled internally. Each time, she had departed with a generous severance package. This wasn't her first scheme, it was her business model. As I built my case, Marcus's true nature revealed itself more fully. During our weekend visits, he grew alternately distant and overly attentive, often checking his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. The few times we were intimate, it felt mechanical, a performance to maintain appearances. "Your new job really suits you," he remarked one Sunday as I prepared to return to Chicago. "You seem more confident, more focused." "I am," I replied honestly. "I didn't realize how much I needed this change." He nodded, a flicker of something like respect crossing his features. Maybe we both needed it. For a moment, I felt a pang of what might have been. If he had been the man I thought I married, if he had valued what we built together, how different things might have been. But that man didn't exist. Perhaps he never had. 3 months into my new position, the inevitable happened. During a routine weekend visit home, Marcus sat me down for an important conversation. I recognized the practiced solemnity of his expression, the careful way he chose his words. I had seen this before in another lifetime. "Eliza, I think we need to be honest with each other," he began. "This arrangement isn't working for me. The distance, the separate lives, it's making me realize some fundamental truths about our relationship." I waited, watching him struggle to find the kindest way to devastate me. "I think we should consider divorce," he finally said. "I care about you deeply, but I'm not in love with you anymore. Haven't been for some time. We've grown apart, and pretending otherwise isn't fair to either of us." I managed a convincing show of shock and pain, though inside I felt only cold determination. This was the moment my plan had been building toward. "Is there someone else?" I asked, my voice deliberately small. He hesitated just long enough to confirm everything. "No, it's not about another person. It's about us. We want different things now." The lie hung between us, as pathetic as it was predictable. "I need time to process this," I said, gathering my purse and jacket. "I'm going back to Chicago tonight, instead of tomorrow. I can't stay here right now." Relief flooded his face at my apparent retreat. "Of course. Take all the time you need. We can handle this maturely, Eliza. I promise to be fair in the settlement." As I walked out the door, I heard him already on the phone, no doubt calling Vanessa with the news that the path was clear for them at last. What he didn't know was that I had just activated the final phase of my plan. The countdown to his reckoning had begun. Back in Chicago, I transformed my apartment into a war room, walls covered with timelines, financial records, and evidence of Marcus and Vanessa's schemes. I had 2 weeks before our next scheduled conversation about divorce proceedings. 2 weeks to ensure everything was perfectly in place. First, I contacted a forensic accountant recommended by a colleague, sharing select documents that highlighted discrepancies in Marcus's client accounts. I was careful not to reveal my full hand or my personal connection to the case. "This looks like classic embezzlement," the accountant said, frowning at the patterns I'd identified. "Multiple clients, systematic fund diversion, falsified returns. If this is accurate, we're talking serious fraud." "How serious?" I asked. "Federal charges serious. Securities fraud carries up to 20 years. Plus there appears to be wire fraud, tax evasion, possibly money laundering." I nodded, feeling strangely calm. "Thank you for confirming my suspicions. What would someone need to build a proper case?" He provided a list of specific documents and evidence that would strengthen the case against Marcus. Most I already had. The rest I knew exactly where to find. Next, I contacted Marcus's firm's largest client, an elderly widow named Mrs. Brennan who had entrusted her late husband's entire estate to Marcus's management. In my previous life, I'd met her several times at company functions. She had always been kind to me, speaking of Marcus as if he were her own son. "Eliza, what a lovely surprise," she said when I called. "How are you enjoying Chicago?" "It's been an adjustment," I admitted. "Mrs. Brennan, I need to speak with you about something important, something concerning." I arranged to meet her for lunch during my next trip back, cautioning her not to mention our conversation to anyone, especially Marcus. The concern in my voice was enough to ensure her discretion. Meanwhile, Marcus was growing impatient. His calls became more frequent, pressing for quick resolution to our divorce. "My lawyer has drawn up an initial settlement," he said during one call. "Very generous terms. You keep the Chicago apartment and your retirement accounts. I keep the house and my business assets. Clean break." "I'll need to have my lawyer review it," I replied. "And I'd like a complete accounting of all our marital assets first." "That's unnecessary," he said quickly. "The settlement covers everything fairly." "Still, I'd prefer full disclosure. Unless there's something you don't want me to see?" His Hesitation told me everything. Fine, it'll just drag things out, but have it your way. I also began carefully cultivating Vanessa, positioning myself as the oblivious soon-to-be ex who harbored no suspicions about her role in my marriage's dissolution. Marcus mentioned you might be helping gather some documents for the divorce, I said when I called her directly, catching her off guard. I was hoping we could meet when I'm in town next week. Woman to woman, no awkwardness. I'm not sure that's appropriate, she stammered. Please, it would mean a lot. I'm trying to handle this divorce with maturity, and clearing the air with Marcus's colleagues would help. Just coffee. She reluctantly agreed, likely curious about what I knew and eager to assess whether I posed any threat to their plans. When I returned home the following weekend, my first meeting was with Mrs. Brennan. Over lunch at a quiet restaurant far from Marcus's usual haunts, I gently shared my concerns. I've discovered some irregularities in how Marcus has been handling certain accounts, I explained. I have reason to believe your investments may be affected. Her face paled. What kind of irregularities? Discrepancies between actual returns and what's being reported. Unauthorized transfers. I don't have concrete proof regarding your specific accounts, but given the pattern I've identified, I felt obligated to warn you. She clutched her napkin tightly. My entire estate is in his hands. Everything Richard left me. I know. That's why I came to you first. I slid a business card across the table. This is the contact information for a forensic accountant and a securities attorney. I suggest you request a full audit of your accounts immediately. Her eyes filled with tears. Why are you doing this, Eliza? Won't this hurt Marcus? I reached for her hand. If he's done nothing wrong, an audit will prove that. But if he has, wouldn't you rather know now before more damage is done? After she left, visibly shaken but determined, I prepared for my meeting with Vanessa. We met at a coffee shop near Marcus's office, a deliberate choice to unsettle her. She arrived looking polished as ever, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her nerves. Thank you for meeting me, I said warmly, as if welcoming an old friend. This divorce has been disorienting, and I'm trying to maintain positive relationships with everyone in Marcus's life. She shifted uncomfortably. It's no problem, though I'm not sure how I can help with your divorce. Oh, I think you can help more than you realize. I kept my tone light. Marcus mentioned you've been organizing some of his client files recently. I was hoping you might point me toward any records relevant to our shared assets. I don't really handle personal matters, she said quickly. Just business accounts. But surely there's overlap. Our investment portfolio, the property holdings? I leaned forward, dropping my voice. Between us, I'm concerned Marcus isn't being entirely forthcoming about our finances. I was hoping you might help ensure everything's properly disclosed. The flash of panic in her eyes confirmed my suspicions. She thought I was fishing for information about their financial improprieties, not their affair. I really wouldn't know anything about that, she said, gathering her purse. I should get back to the office. Of course, just one more thing. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Could you give this to Marcus? It's the contact information for my divorce attorney. Tell him I'm ready to move forward, but with full financial disclosure. She took the folder reluctantly, eager to escape. What she didn't know was that among the legitimate papers was a note only Marcus would understand, referencing specific client accounts I had identified as compromised. A message to let him know I was getting dangerously close to his secrets. That evening, I received a panicked call from Marcus. What the hell are you doing? He demanded. Mrs. Brennan called asking about an audit. And what did you say to Vanessa? Mrs. Brennan is a family friend. I had lunch with her, and I merely asked Vanessa for help understanding our finances. Why? Is there a problem? Stay away from my clients and my staff, he hissed. You're making things complicated for no reason. I'm just being thorough, Marcus. Unless there's something specific you're worried about? The silence that followed was deafening. When he spoke again, his voice had regained its calculated control. Let's accelerate this process. I'm willing to increase the settlement offer if we can finalize things quickly. How does an additional $50,000 sound? That's very generous, I said, feigning surprise. But I still need to see complete financial records before signing anything. Fine, he snapped. I'll have everything sent over Monday, but I want this done within 2 weeks. No more delays. After we hung up, I made my most important call, yet, to a senior investigator at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Using an anonymous tip line, I outlined the evidence I had gathered regarding Marcus's fraudulent activities, providing just enough detail to spark an investigation without revealing my identity. The final piece fell into place when I learned through my company's connections that Marcus was planning a celebration at his firm the following Friday. A partner's retirement party that would conveniently serve as an opportunity for him to announce his new beginning, the perfect stage for his downfall. I spent the rest of the week meticulously organizing my evidence. Copies were secured in multiple locations, including a safe deposit box and encrypted cloud storage. I prepared detailed files for the SEC, the firm's board of directors, and the local district attorney's office, each containing irrefutable proof of years of financial crimes. When Friday arrived, I flew back home one last time, my carry-on containing everything I needed for the confrontation that would end this chapter of my life. As I checked into my hotel room, not the house I had once called home, I received a text from Marcus. Paperwork signed by my lawyer. Courier will deliver to your hotel tomorrow morning. Sign and return, and we're done. Celebration at office. Tonight, new beginnings. I texted back a single word. Perfect. I stood in front of the mirror in my hotel room, applying a final touch of lipstick. The woman staring back at me was poised, confident, unrecognizable from the broken shell who had drowned a lifetime ago. My black dress was simple but elegant, professional rather than festive. This wasn't a celebration for me. It was an execution. The retirement party would be starting soon at Marcus's firm, a gathering of colleagues, clients, and friends to honor a departing partner. Marcus had sent me a perfunctory invitation weeks ago, never expecting I would attend. After all, we were in the final stages of our divorce. Why would I subject myself to such awkwardness? Precisely because it was the last place he would expect me. I checked my bag one last time. The flash drive containing all the evidence. The divorce papers he'd sent over, still unsigned. A small voice recorder, just in case. Everything was in place. The SEC investigator I'd tipped off had confirmed they were opening a formal investigation, but bureaucracy moved slowly. Tonight wasn't about legal justice. It was about truth, about making Marcus face what he'd done, not just to his clients, but to me. The firm's offices occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown high-rise. As I entered the elevator, my heart raced, not from fear but anticipation. When the doors opened on the main reception floor, I heard laughter and music flowing from the conference area. I spotted Marcus immediately. He stood near the center of the room, one arm casually draped around Vanessa's waist, no longer hiding their relationship, apparently. They looked like the perfect power couple, his tailored suit, her stylish dress, both radiant with the confidence of people who believed they had gotten away with something. I waited, watching, from the periphery as colleagues congratulated the retiring partner. Champagne flowed freely, spirits were high. The perfect backdrop for the scene I was about to create. Finally, Marcus clinked his glass for attention. The room quieted as he began a speech honoring his departing colleague. "Bill has been a mentor and friend to all of us," he said, his voice carrying the practiced charm I once found so attractive. "His integrity and commitment to our clients set the standard to which we all aspire." Ironic, coming from a man who had violated every principle of integrity in his professional life. And while tonight marks an ending, it also represents new beginnings, Marcus continued, his gaze sliding to Vanessa. Life is about embracing change, moving forward toward brighter futures. That was my cue. I stepped forward from the shadows, glass in hand. To new beginnings, I said loudly, drawing every eye in the room, and to the truth that sets us free. Marcus froze mid-sentence, his champagne glass suspended in air. The color drained from his face as he registered my presence. Eliza, he recovered quickly, false warmth spreading across his features. What a surprise. Everyone, my wife, Eliza. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I corrected pleasantly, moving toward him. I thought I should deliver the divorce papers in person. Such an important document deserves a proper handoff, don't you think? Confusion rippled through the crowd. Most knew Marcus was married, but few had met me, especially since my move to Chicago. Vanessa had stepped away from his side, maintaining a professional distance now that I was present. This isn't really the time or place, Marcus said through a tight smile. Perhaps we could speak privately. Actually, this is exactly the right time and place. I turned to address the room. You all know Marcus as a brilliant investment manager, a man who delivers exceptional returns. What you don't know is how he achieves those returns. The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Marcus stepped toward me, his expression darkening. Eliza, you're embarrassing yourself. Let's take this elsewhere. No, I don't think I will. I reached into my bag and retrieved the flash drive. Everything you need to know is right here. Client funds diverted to personal accounts, falsified investment returns, embezzlement on a scale that would make Bernie Madoff proud. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing my arm. That's enough, he hissed. I pulled away. Don't worry, I've made copies. The SEC has one. The board of directors has one. The district attorney has one. I raised my voice again. Did you really think I wouldn't notice, Marcus? Did you think I was that blind? The senior partners were moving toward us now, their expressions grave. Bill, the retiring partner, spoke first. Marcus, what is she talking about? Before he could answer, the elevator doors opened. Two men in suits entered, scanning the room before focusing on Marcus. Marcus Daniels? One asked, approaching us. I'm Agent Kellerman with the FBI, White Collar Crimes Division. We need to, speak with you regarding allegations of securities fraud. The timing couldn't have been more perfect if I'd planned it. I hadn't, of course. My SEC tip had simply worked faster than expected. Marcus stared at the agents, then at me, comprehension dawning in his eyes. You did this, he whispered. No, Marcus, you did this. I just made sure you couldn't hide it anymore. I handed him the divorce papers. You wanted these signed quickly. I brought my own pen. Chaos erupted around us. Partners huddled together, in urgent conversation. Clients demanded explanations. The FBI agents requested access to Marcus's office and files. Through it all, Marcus stood frozen, the papers clutched in his hand, his carefully constructed world collapsing around him. Vanessa attempted to slip away unnoticed, making for the elevator. I intercepted her smoothly. Leaving so soon? But the party's just getting started. She glared at me. I don't know what you think you know, but I had nothing to do with any of this. I'm just his secretary. Secretary, accomplice, girlfriend. I smiled coldly. I've tracked your career, Vanessa. 3 firms in 5 years. 3 executives facing financial investigations after your departure. 3 generous severance packages. This is your business model, isn't it? Find a man with access to other people's money, help him steal it, then vanish before the consequences hit. Her composure cracked. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Your email exchanges with Marcus about which clients were easiest to mislead. Your signature on falsified documents. Your role in creating the offshore accounts. It's all documented. A second FBI agent approached us. "Ms. Winters, we'd like to ask you some questions as well." As she was led away, I turned back to find Marcus being escorted toward his office, likely for a preliminary search. Our eyes met across the room. In his, I saw shock, betrayal, and something else. Fear. The fear of a man who suddenly realized he had grossly underestimated his opponent. One of the senior partners approached me, his face ashen. "Mrs. Daniels, I don't know what to say. If what you're alleging is true..." "It is. And please, call me Eliza. Mrs. Daniels won't be my name much longer." "How did you discover all this?" I thought about that night driving in the rain, the crash, the darkness, the impossible second chance. Let's just say I learned to pay attention to the things that matter. More FBI agents arrived. Clients began calling their lawyers. The retirement party had transformed into a crime scene. Through it all, I stood calm at the center of the storm I had created. One of the partners offered me a seat in a quiet office away from the chaos. I declined politely. "I've seen everything I came to see. I should go." As I walked toward the Kagosa elevator, Marcus called out from where he stood with the agents. "You've ruined everything. Was this worth it? Destroying what I built?" I turned back one last time. "What you built was a house of lies, Marcus. On the backs of people who trusted you. On the foundation of a marriage you never valued. Don't worry about the clients, though. I've already arranged for Mrs. Brennan and the others to recoup their losses." "How?" he demanded. "Remember my grandmother's inheritance you were so interested in? The one Vanessa kept asking about? It wasn't much, but it was enough to establish a restitution fund. I'll be overseeing it personally." His face contorted with disbelief. There had never been any inheritance. It was a fiction I had created, knowing they would fixate on it. A final misdirection in my elaborate plan. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. As they closed on the scene of Marcus's professional destruction, I felt neither triumph nor regret. Only the quiet satisfaction of justice long overdue. In the reflection of the elevator doors, I smiled at the woman I had become. No longer a victim, no longer a fool. Reborn through fire and water into someone who would never again be underestimated. The aftermath unfolded exactly as I had anticipated. Headlines dominated the financial news for weeks. Investment manager charged in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. High-profile embezzlement case rocks financial district. Secretary and executive lovers face federal charges. I watched it all from the safety of my Chicago apartment, maintaining a dignified silence when reporters called seeking comments from the whistleblower wife, who had exposed the scheme. The divorce was finalized quickly, with Marcus in no position to contest anything. His assets were frozen pending the investigation, but I wanted nothing from him anyway. The life we had shared was worth less to me than my freedom from it. Vanessa attempted to cut a deal, offering to testify against Marcus in exchange for leniency. Her strategy backfired when investigators discovered she had already begun embezzling funds from the firm for herself, preparing her exit strategy. Neither of them would escape the consequences this time. 6 months passed. Spring turned to summer, and I threw myself into my new role at Meridian Marketing. My team had just landed a major account, cementing my reputation as a rising star in the industry. My apartment had become a home, filled with new furniture and artwork that held no memories of my previous life. In the evenings, I took painting classes, rediscovering a passion I had abandoned years ago to support Marcus's career. On a warm Thursday morning, I received an unexpected call from Jeremy Collins, a former colleague from Marcus's firm who had been cleared of any involvement in the fraud. "I hope I'm not overstepping," he said after we exchanged pleasantries. "But I thought you should know that Marcus's sentencing is tomorrow." "Thank you for telling me," I replied, surprised by the lack of emotion I felt at the news. "He asks about you, whenever anyone visits. Wants to know how you're doing, if you're still in Chicago." Does he? Yes. It's strange, actually. He seems more concerned about you than about his own fate. I considered this. Perhaps he's finally developed a conscience. Maybe. Jeremy paused. He seems different. Broken. Not just by the circumstances, but by the realization of what he lost. He told me once that he never appreciated what he had until it was gone. A common regret? I said evenly. Will you attend the sentencing? I had already decided I wouldn't. There was nothing left for me in that courtroom. No closure I hadn't already claimed for myself. No, that chapter of my life is finished. After we hung up, I stood by my window, looking out over the Chicago skyline. The woman who had drowned in that river would have gone, seeking a final confrontation, perhaps even forgiveness. But I wasn't her anymore. My rebirth had taught me that sometimes the most powerful statement is simply to move forward. The next day, while Marcus faced the judge to receive his sentence, I was in a conference room presenting a new campaign to our biggest client. As they applauded my innovative approach, my phone buzzed with a text from Jeremy. 15 years, Vanessa got 8. Justice, cold and impersonal. Not revenge exactly, but accountability. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and continued my presentation without missing a beat. Weeks later, I received a letter forwarded through my attorney. Marcus's handwriting on the envelope. For a moment, I considered throwing it away unopened. What could he possibly say that would matter now? But curiosity won out. Eliza, he had written, I don't expect forgiveness, nor do I deserve it. I write only to acknowledge the truth. You were never the problem in our marriage. The emptiness was in me, a void I tried to fill with money, status, and ultimately Vanessa. I told myself you were holding me back when in reality, you were the only thing keeping me grounded. I see that now, too late. In destroying what we had, I destroyed the best part of myself you deserved. Better than the man I was. I hope you found the happiness you always deserved. Marcus. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. No anger surged through me, no satisfaction, no vindication, just a quiet acknowledgement that his words changed nothing. The Marcus I had loved never existed. The woman who had loved him was gone too, transformed by betrayal and rebirth into someone stronger. Autumn came to Chicago in a blaze of red and gold. I had been promoted again, now overseeing the entire creative division at Meridian. My team respected me, my clients trusted me, and for the first time in years, I trusted myself. The woman who had once defined herself as Marcus's wife now defined herself by her own achievements, her own choices. One crisp Saturday morning, I met with a real estate agent to view a lakefront condominium. It was time to put down roots in this city that had become my sanctuary. It's at the top of your budget, the agent cautioned as we rode the elevator to the penthouse floor. I can afford it, I replied confidently. My latest bonus had been substantial, and investments made with my own money, not stolen from trusting clients, had performed well. As we toured the spacious condo with its panoramic views of Lake Michigan, I envisioned a future here. A home. Office for late-night work sessions. A studio space for painting. A spare bedroom for visits from friends or perhaps family someday. I'll take it, I told the agent before we'd even completed the tour. She seemed surprised by my decisiveness. Don't you want to think about it? Maybe compare with other properties? I know what I want, I said simply. I don't need to second-guess myself anymore. Later that day, I received another call from Jeremy. He had maintained sporadic contact, perhaps feeling some obligation as a connection to my former life. I saw Marcus yesterday, he said without preamble. How is he? I asked, more out of politeness than genuine concern. Adjusting, I suppose. Prison isn't kind to white-collar criminals, especially ones who stole from elderly clients. He mentioned something interesting, though. He said he dreams about you sometimes. Not romantic dreams, but nightmares where he's drowning and you're watching from a bridge, refusing to help. The image struck me with unexpected force. The bridge, the water, the drowning. Memories of a death that never happened in this timeline, yet had shaped everything that followed. Strange, I murmured. I thought so too. Anyway, he asked me to give you a message if I spoke to you. He said to tell you he understands now. Understands what? He didn't elaborate. Just said you would know what he meant. After we hung up, I walked to the window of my current apartment, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over Chicago. Did Marcus truly understand? Did he realize I had orchestrated his downfall with the same meticulous care he had once applied to his fraudulent schemes? Did he know that every step of his destruction had been planned by the wife he had so carelessly discarded? It didn't matter. Understanding wouldn't reduce his sentence or restore what he had stolen, from his clients or from me. The following weekend, I moved into my new condo. As I unpacked boxes, I came across a small velvet pouch I had almost forgotten. Inside was my wedding ring, which I had removed the day Marcus asked for a divorce but had never disposed of. I held it up to the light, this circle of gold that had once symbolized a promise, a future, a partnership. It belonged to another life, another woman. I walked to my balcony overlooking the city. Below, a charity collection box stood on the corner, accepting donations for families in need. Without hesitation, I dropped the ring into the slot. Let it fund something worthwhile for a change. As I turned back toward my new home, I felt lighter. Not because of revenge satisfied or justice served, but because I had finally, completely, let go of the woman I had been. The one who had defined herself by her marriage, who had drowned in that river on a rainy night. I was reborn. Not as a victim seeking vengeance, but as a woman who had reclaimed her power and refused to surrender it again. That was the true victory, far more satisfying than watching Marcus fall. In the end, making him regret his choices wasn't about punishment. It was about truth, about consequences, about a world where actions matter and trust is sacred. I had made him face that truth. Now I was free to create my own.